for up. Now I'm a presenter, and so I'm going to start presenting here. There we go. Okay, so part of the way that we do this, as I say, we're working with colleges, universities, community colleges, things like this, and it's through this program called Pisces. Pisces is the Public Infrastructure Security Cyber Education System. For just kind of a background, this is me. And so again, going back over the last 30 plus years, I have had every job in what we now call cyber that you can think of, right down to the information security dishwasher. And feedback like that is what happens when people have more than one microphone on. And I know this because I am a punk drummer in a couple of bands, and we have to deal with that all the time. So this is the context I'm coming from, but my focus right now is both on the company, Critical Insight, the commercial entity, and Pisces, the nonprofit. Here's what Pisces does. So we do free monitoring for small local governments. When I say free cyber monitoring, what does that mean? It means we put a gizmo on a network and it hoovers up all kinds of events going on. Those events are routed over not to our commercial operation, but over to the cyber range set up by Western Washington University in Poulsbo, Washington. Okay. Currently, 10 universities have access, and they're all teaching the same curriculum that is curated by Western Washington University. So as a teaching tool, students are looking at real events occurring on critical infrastructure, ideally in their own neighborhood, in their own state. And so the mission focus is extremely important. Let me just talk about the mission focus for a second, okay? So we're talking about local governments, right? I was the CISO for the city of Seattle for about 8 years, which, by the way, is geologic time in this business. You talk about, my credit card information has been disclosed. Big freaking deal. Nobody's going to care if your toilet won't flush and your water's not drinkable. And that's what your local government does for you. Local governments don't have any money. They can't buy stuff. They can't hire people. They can't hire a service, especially the ones that are really down market. So they need something. So Pisces is something that we came up with over, I guess it's more than 10 years now, started as a regional monitoring project in Puget Sound area to do nothing more than provide free monitoring, grant funded, for small cities and counties so that we had regional awareness. We had situational awareness of who was getting hassled and is it happening to everybody and what is it? So this is important for the following reason, and I don't know what everybody's background is and how much you have how much time you've spent really researching this cyber business, right? Information security, but this is about risk management. So the mathematics of risk, this is the simplest expression you can have for risk. Risk is the product of the likelihood of a bad thing happening and its impact. Okay, well, you buy down that likelihood term by investing in preventive controls. We train our users, we manage our vulnerabilities, we filter our email, we can block URLs we don't like. Those are all preventive controls, and they're designed to make a bad thing not happen. Bad things are going to happen, and when they do, you have to focus on the impact. And the way you buy down risk from the impact term is through monitoring and effective response. Okay, this is a huge limitation, especially in local governments. Okay, in local government, they're not watching their networks. They don't know something's gone wrong. Hey, we have antivirus, it's good. No, it's not good. So, you see the statistics here. I think that 100 days, we're doing a little better than that now, but that's the average time that it takes to figure out your network has been compromised, right? 70% of victims don't know this themselves. They're contacted by the FBI. These are statistics I got from a friend of mine's Secret Service. So clearly we got a problem here. Wow, well, why don't local governments go hire people? Well, because we don't have any damn people. That's why. So, local government in particular cannot compete when Amazon is out there waving around bags of cash. Nobody wants to go work in the public sector where the value proposition is, oh, you get Groundhog Day off, you know? So we need to solve both those problems. The infrastructure security with local governments that make your toilet flush, your water drinkable, the cops get to your house on time, emergency management, 911, elections. IT holds all that up in a county in the middle of Kansas is equally important to King County in Washington with respect to the things they do. They can't hire people. They need a solution. All right. So if we're going to have a solution, we're going to train people. And we are going to try and get to a place where we are neck deep in these kind of professionals such that the value per each goes down. And I hate to say it that way, but that's what we need to do as a country. If we were awash in cyber analysts and they were $60,000 a year apiece, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We would hire our way out of this problem. All right, now schools. We say, what do you teach? Well, we teach cyber. What the hell does that mean? Cyber is a cartoon word. All right, let's try and home in on something here. Information security analysts, the 10th fastest growing job in the country, and then it's only cyber job on the list. So yeah, go out and teach this big amorphous blob we call cyber, right? Application security, network security, right? Procurement security, third party security, all these things, right? That's cyber, okay? All right, well, look, no, we home in on the thing that's getting hired that we need the most. Information security analysts, okay? These are the people that look at events going on in a network, figure out which of them are real, because about 99% of them are not real, and get them into these jobs where we can move the lever on how well we are managing the impact term of the risk expression. Yes, bad stuff is going to happen. The federal government talks about resilience. All right, what's that mean? It means take a punch and get back up. Right? Well, if you detect that your preventive controls have failed and you see an asset on your network talking to known organized crime command and control, one of two things can happen. Number one, the help desk can clean up that workstation. Number two, the FBI can call and tell you all of your records are for sale online, and you get to pick which one of those outcomes is yours if you manage the impact term. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to provide some infrastructure security for down market local governments. We want to provide training for people that can go and take the 10th fastest growing job in the country, and we want to train them on live fire. All right, that's what Pisces does. Okay, so Pisces is non-governmental organizations, a 501c3. It basically holds a lot of contract paper. So we have curriculum agreements with all of our schools: Central Washington, Western Washington, Eastern Washington, St. Martin's, Green River, Alabama A&M, 3 colleges in Colorado, and pretty soon we're lighting up Kentucky. So we got these all over the place. So currently I think it's about 10 schools. I think we're actually a little better than that. So we have curriculum agreements. We have an agreement with Western Washington University, which is our lead school, to curate the curriculum so that everybody is teaching exactly the same thing. We have agreements, a statement of service with down market local governments. When I say down market local government, what I mean is we want them to be fewer than 150 employees. Why? Because if they're larger than that, they should really be going out for a commercial service. If we use grant money to supplant what government should be doing in terms of engaging with the private sector, that's a big no-no. So, we can't use grant money to compete with the private sector, so we cap that at 150 employees. And that's about the right level for the students to be mining through this stuff. A whole lot of crazy stuff doesn't happen, but every once in a while stuff does. Okay, here's what we do. We provide that infrastructure protection at no cost to these small local governments. We are punching people off this assembly line as fast as we can to pollute the community with these analysts, the 10th fastest growing job in the country. And then we have research opportunities, and I won't get in too much into the research, but looking at things like entropy and DNS A record lookups is can be used as a detection analytic for malware. Natural language processing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could do in terms of research. We have a big data set. Okay, so the curriculum, students, how does this stack work? Okay, it's the ELK stack: Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. What an analyst does. Okay, the kinds of investigations that you would need to go through. And then sit your butt down in this seat and you are an operational analyst and you are looking for things happening at these cities, counties, school districts. We got a water district. There's a lot of things count as local government. So again, the curriculum is portable and Western Washington curates it. Typically, here's some of the stuff we find. A lot of brute forcing going on. Occasionally, we find things inside a network that have just gone crazy, and we can have them, refresh a couple of workstations and get their traffic way down. It's amazing how poorly these networks are monitored. Credentials in the clear. Well, that's policy violation. So it's stuff like this. Occasionally we get a big one. Pisces is not unknown in the media. And in fact, we were recognized a long time ago, back when Alejandro Mayorkas was the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, came out and got a briefing with Senator Murray from myself and wrote us this really cool letter. So organization, we're nonprofit. We have directors from all over the place, including in state legislator, City of Spokane, Pacific Northwest Economic Region. And we are funded by the Department of Homeland Security and partnered with Pacific Northwest National Labs. What goes on during the day? Over here at Pisces, we have an oversight analyst that reviews all of the student tickets, talks back to them. Every semester, we have to say, no, that 192.168 address is not a bad guy on the internet. Those are all internal addresses. And, it's a little jaw dropping that they got this far and never knew that. So heads up to you guys. Every month we put out a monthly report. And so I think this is my last slide. And what we do is we summarize all the things that have happened. That goes up to Homeland Security, that goes out to PNNL, that goes out to all the participating jurisdictions, that goes to our local Homeland Security, protective security advisors, cybersecurity advisors, the cyber chief, they all get this stuff. Okay, now I have tried to blast through this as fast as I possibly could. So what I'm going to do is now we have some questions that have come up. And let me get those real quick. In fact, Morgan, do you have those handy? Winter, do you have those handy?
They were in my email that I sent to you.
This morning?
Yep.
Do you remember which address you sent it to? Because I have like tons of email addresses. Yeah, I actually thought I was going to be interviewed by someone who would ask me these questions. So, but I can self-interview. Okay. And these are actually great questions. Okay. Can Pisces be used in high school if we are offering a Cisco CCNA? Yes. And in fact, if you have a Cisco class going on where you're teaching a fairly deep level of networking, that is exactly perfect for what the students need. And this happens all the time. I'll walk into, I speak with lots of students at the schools that are teaching Pisces curriculum, and I tell them, if I say port 53 UDP protocol and you don't say DNS, we're not going to have a conversation. That's what we need to know. Port 22 is SSH. Port 25 is SMTP. These things all need to be known by people. What's PowerShell, things like that, which is not really networking, but it's still one of the things that you can see the signal of on a network. What is an intrusion detection system, right? Well, it's just like antivirus, except it's not looking at a file you're about to write to disk. It's looking at the pattern of bytes going zinging by on the network and says, oh, I just saw the pattern of the Emotet Trojan. Alert goes off. The students see the alert, they open up a ticket. We have an oversight analyst that works with them, things like that. So yes, if you're teaching CCNA, Cisco classes specifically around networking, that's the perfect background for this. Number 2, could the Renton School District and Chamber of Commerce work with Pisces to provide both small business and academic institutions? No. And here's why. We cannot go out and compete with the private sector. If you have a private sector business, you go buy a solution. Homeland Security will give you a few things for free, but we can't use federal grant money to, push commercial operations to the side. In terms of school districts, we can work with school districts. We can monitor school districts, but we don't want to see student traffic. We will monitor the administrative network and not the student network. So if there's a good segregation between the student network and the admin network, no problem. If we're looking at all that student stuff, it's an overwhelming amount of junk, and we don't want to do it. What do students need to know to benefit from a system like Pisces? First of all, they got to have pretty reasonable networking background, and it is helpful if they understand how a ticketing system works. That's something that they're going to run into a lot when they get out there and gain employment. Everybody uses a ticketing system for one thing or another. So I mean, it's just a good thing to know. I don't know that that is a prerequisite, but it's certainly what they're going to pick up as they work with Pisces. The other thing they need to know is how to conduct investigations. And so you can look up the provenance of an IP address, for example. Who's owned it? When was it registered? What is it? Has it been known to be a spammer or malware distributor, something like that? They need to know things like this. But basically, it's using just services online. I mean, these services are all over the place. How to use VirusTotal, for example. How to use Shodan. Right? Shodan is a really great tool to be able to look up the certificate of someone's site and see if there's something wrong with that, which is a tip-off that these are bad guys. So that's actually a great question. If a high school cannot participate in Pisces, is there something similar we could set up in our city? I think high schools can participate in Pisces. But I think the earlier we reach the students and get them into this battle rhythm of here's the junk that goes on in a network. Most of it is meaningless, but it's all trying to get your attention. How do you sift through there and figure out what's real? And then part that comes after that the students do not participate in is response. That would be a good add-on. But frankly, for high school students to be looking at these events going on networks and saying I think this is a bad one, can somebody look at it? That's great. The jurisdictions that we monitor, they're doing critical stuff. And if we get to a place where we have enough students, community colleges, universities, high schools, to where we can do the logistics to get as close to full-time coverage as possible, then we're really doing a service for the communities. The workforce development is kind of taking care of itself. Now, I will say this. I will say in the classes that we have, that I've personally been engaged with, there's maybe 15 or 20% of the students that really get good at this. A lot of them are taking the class because they have to. A lot of them take it because they're curious. They just want to tick off a requirement or something like that. There's about 20% that end up being really good. They are getting snapped up like crazy. Why? Because employers want you to come out of a university experience with a degree, maybe some kind of certain certification, but they're always asking for experience, right? And it's this chicken and egg problem. Well, if you can say, I have operational experience because I worked on the Pisces project, evaluating events going on in critical networks, all of a sudden you got a seat at the table. So they are getting snapped up like crazy. We hire as many as we can at CI. GE has been hiring them. Boeing has been hiring them. So we know that this is a successful program, and it does get them to be entry-level analysts. Do you have any recommendations on how to get high school students internships or externships in cybersecurity and networking? I would actually work with some of the Homeland Security folks that are trying to crack that code. So every state has a cybersecurity advisor, a CSA, a protective security advisor, a PSA. There is a cyber chief, and they all know in pretty good detail the efforts that are going on in DHS in their regions to try and promote programs like that. There's another one called the American Apprenticeship Program, or the American Apprenticeship Initiative or something like that. That's a good one to take a look at as well. But for me, internships are fairly easy to get going in local governments. And the reason is because local governments are so starved of resources. If you go to the private sector and say, you know, we'd like to have an internship program, they go, you know what, interns take a lot of management and then they're gone. And so what do we really get out of that? Well, in the public sector, they're so starved of those resources, there's actually a value proposition for them. And where else? I would think that um, again with the something like the American Apprenticeship Initiative, because out in public utilities, so you know, water, waste, to a certain extent, power, they know apprenticeships really well. Most of the people that staff the operational technology side of utilities came up as pipe fitters and welders and things like that. And then apprenticeships is what got them there. So they understand those programs. And apprenticeship is a job, so that makes you more sticky. Um, let's see, there's also efforts that are going on with some of the large corporations like Microsoft, Google, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can get some details about those seem to be, I think, a lot easier to approach because they've held up their hand and they say, we want to do this. Okay, so I have gone through a kind of a short Pisces deck in a whirlwind fashion. We've talked about some of these questions. I want to say this, though. When we hire at Critical Insight, we don't really care if you have a degree or not. We are more interested in your curiosity, in your ability and willingness to pull on a thread to see where it goes, right? Your tenaciousness. And one of the questions we always ask our applicants is, tell me about your home network. Because what we have found is there's a very high correlation between people that have built out some kind of infrastructure at home to do testing, experiments, almost bad guy things. Those have been very, very good employees because they've taken this initiative and done this all themselves. So I did want to make sure I threw that on the table. And with that, we have about 5 more minutes for any questions that anybody would like to ask. And I'm sorry this had to go so fast, but 30 minutes, I wanted to stay within time. You can put questions in the
Could
chat.
the slide deck be shared with us?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll send this to Morgan and you guys can have it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone, so I'll ask you questions. Any of your high schools have the kind of, you know, precursory classes that would make Pisces a good fit for your school, right? So do you have students that are probably, you know, going up as juniors? Are they getting some good networking so that they could look at some of these events, go, yeah, I recognize these?
I have to check if it's networking, but we definitely have a lot of good computer programs at Woodinville High School.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I would, have I ever heard of a high school that makes students superficially responsible for some of these local public services? No, and that is a very, very, very good question. So let me just drill into this a little bit. We have a statement of service that we give to our monitored jurisdictions. It doesn't make any representations at all. And I tell them very directly, this is a happy meal. Okay. We are going to provide you a modicum of oversight, but this is student trainees becoming analysts, and it is what it is. There's no indemnification. We won't handle your public disclosure requests. If somebody comes and says, show me the IP addresses that the mayor is connected to, no, go away, go back to the jurisdiction. They're the ones that own, you know, the original record. So the students would not be responsible for, you know, making sure that, you know, these jurisdictions didn't melt down. And in fact, we've had it happen once. And it happened over Christmas break when there were no students, and which is why now we have the Pisces analyst that works with the students and provides kind of that stopgap when nobody's in session. Eric is asking, what do we do to connect with Pisces? So there is a so the Pisces domain is Pisces, Pisces intl international.org. And so there's a website there, and you can, go read about it and things like this. There's also an info address, info@pisces-intel.org. And if you wanted to just send email into that address, or myself, mkh@pisces-intel.org, we will absolutely want to have that conversation with you. And in fact, I think it would be a huge win for both the Pisces program and the country, as well as your own schools, for us to get this spun up in some high schools. We would love to. We've been talking about this for a long time. So, we're going to entertain anybody's interest, and see what we can do to put this together. We like to do this at a statewide level. And here's why. Because we set this up on grant money. So we can bolt schools onto local jurisdictions and provide the students with the curriculum. After a year, we want an agreement with the state that the state is going to take over operations and maintenance costs, because we have this huge technology footprint we have to manage. We have to build collectors to go out on the customer networks. We have to do all these things. Do students have to be U.S. citizens? Today, no, they do not. But we do want them backgrounded in some way. At the university, they're doing some backgrounding. We would probably want to talk about how that would work at the high school level. And with that, we got one more minute. Anybody have another question? And also, Morgan knows exactly where I'm in. If you ever needed to get a hold of myself or some of the other folks that work with Pisces, Morgan is a real good contact for that. Okay, sounds like we're good to go. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope that this didn't go so fast that some of the message got lost in the way I yell at my audience, but I wish you all very good luck in trying to promote things like this at the high school level, because the country needs it. So thank you all.